All right, today's top story is the stimulus. After weeks of saying wait and see, the White House on Saturday called for a $2 trillion phase 4. That's right. The White House now calling for a $2 trillion phase 4 stimulus package. This came from Peter Navarro, who's the White House trade advisor to President Trump. He said this on Maria Bartiromo's show, and my jaw, frankly, hit the floor. Because, and we'll come back and talk about it in a second, but $2 trillion. Let's hear from Peter Navarro exactly what the White House wants.
For me and for this president, one of the key thrusts of any phase 4 and any economic plan going forward has to be manufacturing jobs, a focus on buy American, hire American, make it in the USA. What we need to do as a country is to make more stuff here. What'll that do? It'll simultaneously create more manufacturing jobs, which tend to pay much higher wages, and also help the ripple effect to create a lot of those service sector jobs, which we're going to lose to dislocation as we adjust. So the phase 4, you talk about a $3 trillion program by Nancy Pelosi. You hear from Mitch McConnell, only $1 trillion. The president is very interested in something on the order of at least $2 trillion, with a bulk of that focused on bringing home our manufacturing base, starting with pharmaceuticals.
That's amazing. Now, I want to paint a picture for you here because I think it's very important. And I think what you're starting to see is this emergence. And hear my theory out. Good cop, bad cop. Did you hear what Peter Navarro said? I thought it was very interesting the way that he couched that. He said Nancy Pelosi over here with their $3 million Heroes Act that's sitting on the desks of the Senate right now, which has been labeled dead on arrival, that anything that came out of the Democrats dead on arrival. Mitch McConnell wants $1 trillion. But did you hear the way that he said it? Mitch McConnell only wants $1 trillion. The president wants about $2 trillion. It's like not too hot, not too cold, right in the middle. And I think the Senate Majority Leader, because Mitch McConnell is under intense pressure already, right? Constituents are fired up. We're going to have a phone number below in the description so you can call the senator's office and tell them what you want, demand another round of stimulus money. We'll have that phone number so you can blow up their phone lines today. Okay, we'll make sure that phone number is included for you. But he's already under intense pressure back home. We know suddenly this Charles Booker has emerged as a potential candidate that could totally upend the Senate. Charles Booker, of course, a member of the House there in Kentucky, has emerged as a clear voice, a representative of the people in that state, an entrenched senator who has never lost. Could he face a real challenge from Charles Booker? He's already got newspaper endorsements. He's got the endorsements of Bernie Sanders. This is big. This is big because that's not the establishment candidate that Charles Schumer put up down in Kentucky. So Mitch McConnell's already on thin ice as we enter this election season for him. And President Trump knows that. President Trump also knows that he is on thin ice. We'll get to his poll numbers in just a second. Here's an opportunity, though, for President Trump to do something politically savvy, and I'm sure his advisors have pointed him in this direction, that he can, on the one hand, push up against Nancy Pelosi. We're not doing your $3 million pork barrel stimulus package that's going to, have extra money in there for cannabis and so forth and so on. But Mitch, $1 trillion over here? Come on, Mitch, that's not enough. The American people are hurting. And then in the middle rides President Trump, right down the middle, to play good cop against Mitch McConnell's bad cop. It's brilliant. If this is what's going to come out of the White House now, it's a brilliant move. Because what this also does is, remember the first round of stimulus under the CARES Act had $300 billion for direct stimulus payments to you. Okay? So this round would have to include, at $2 trillion price tag, there will absolutely be additional direct stimulus payments to the American people. We heard from Treasury Secretary Mnuchin last week talking about direct stimulus. So, an infusion of money into the economy, specifically to the American people in the form of a check. I'd be really curious to see what this comes out to be. $2,000 per month? $1,200? some form of what the House had already passed, more than what Mitch McConnell had wanted to do, which I have not heard any Republican in the Senate or any leadership member of the Republican Party in the Senate talking about another direct payment to you. What I have heard, of course, is liability protection from the Senate. I've heard, making sure that we get some tax credits, some other targeted things, but no direct payments. So here's an opportunity for President Trump to kind of ride in on a horse and maybe help bolster some of his poll numbers, because he's watching these things. I know he'll tweet about how he doesn't think that they're accurate, but they're watching them and they're very concerned. And members of the White House are concerned about President Trump's election viability at this point. So we'll get to those poll numbers again. So I think he gets best of both worlds by calling for an additional $2 trillion. He can ride in on that, which is far above what Mitch McConnell wants, and also targeting manufacturing. Now that goes right to his base. When he was campaigning, this was one of the things that he wanted brought back to America, right? He was meeting with these big companies, Harley Davidson and the Carrier air conditioning manufacturing companies and all of this, to get those jobs back from Mexico and get those jobs back from China, bring them back here or keep them here through a series of tax incentives. I just disagree with Peter Navarro here, and I disagree with the president. I don't believe these manufacturing jobs are coming back to the United States. I just don't see it. I don't see how you could ever have a competitive manufacturing core again in the United States when you're up against Mexico, India, Vietnam, China, Indonesia. I just don't see it. The amount of regulation and red tape, benefits, health benefits, all of the stuff that keeps those businesses from manufacturing here in the United States, just throwing money at it, unless it's through some bigger tax incentives. I mean, we did see some jobs coming back to the United States, but they weren't manufacturing under the Trump tax cuts. By being able to lower that corporate rate, brought a lot of business back, but it wasn't manufacturing. The fact of the matter is, as Americans, we love our cheap televisions. Imagine an American-made television. I think the cost would be 3 times what we currently pay for a TV that comes from Samsung or other places. It's the truth. So there might be an opportunity for manufacturing to do assembly in the United States, right? Parts still manufactured elsewhere, and assembly takes place here. But I think that ship has sailed. So I don't know what that additional money would be for. Like a series of tax incentives for businesses to bring manufacturing here. I mean, I would love nothing more than for big manufacturing plants to open up again. A lot of those towns through West Virginia, New York, and other areas that were factory towns that were decimated and are left vacant, Ohio and others. Great. I just don't see it happening. We've shifted our economy. We're an information-based economy now. And so it would be fascinating to see what that additional $1 trillion would do for manufacturing. So we'll start to hear about that over the next few weeks. So, folks, another stimulus is coming. A massive new stimulus is coming. And like I said, if you would have asked me a week or so ago, would we see additional checks directly to you if we were listening to Republicans, I didn't think we were going to. But now we're hearing from Steven Mnuchin and the White House that they want a direct stimulus to the American people. So what does that mean? Does that mean a $1,200 check to get you back to work? Does that mean a direct regular payment of $2,000 per month? We don't know yet. And those talks will start after the Senate comes back from their recess on July 21st. But in the meantime, we're starting to get more and more ideas from the White House advisors who are repeatedly talking about different things that they want. So Kevin Hastett was asked this yesterday as well. He's a White House economic advisor. So we've had 2 separate White House economic advisors with 2, different speeches here on what we'll see in this next round of stimulus. So listen to Kevin Hastett yesterday on Fox Business talking about this next phase 4 stimulus.
Do you think the economy needs another stimulus right now? Yeah, I think that absolutely 100% there will be another stimulus bill of some sort. The question is, what shape will it take? There are things that the White House believes very, very strongly really need to happen in order to make sure that we not only get back to operating, but take off. We have a liftoff, and one of those, for example, would be liability protection. So that if I have a restaurant and somebody feels like they might have got COVID at my restaurant, that they can't sue me and bankrupt me. And so there are a lot of things that we think need to happen, but we also believe that the situation on the ground is evolving so rapidly that it would be foolhardy to have another stimulus like, especially the size of the House bill precisely now. So imagine whatever you thought we might need in terms of stimulus when you thought that the jobs number was going to be minus 10 million, probably changed when you saw that it was plus 2.5 million. Our view is that we need to collect data between now and the end of July, assess the situation on the ground, and then have a targeted bill. But we will definitely support some bill of some kind, and that's what Secretary Mnuchin said on your clip.
So they're going to be looking at this data over the next few weeks. Now, it'll be very important at the beginning of July here what that June jobs report looks like. I'm still surprised by the jubilance of these guys about this jobs report. Because again, a lot of these jobs were people returning to jobs where they were temporarily furloughed. So a lot of these numbers are shifty. And these variables, we're really not going to understand these numbers probably for like a year. According to economists, we really won't see how all of these different variables, because it's not a clear normal number from the Labor Department. You're fired, you're not going back to work, you're not looking for work, right? Layoff or you're not looking for work. Those are usually the two categories. But during this COVID crisis, we've had people who've been temporarily laid off. They get still health benefits. They're not really officially unemployed, but they kind of are. So they're able to find. There's all these weird shades in this, and so we know that these numbers are wildly inaccurate. And so if they're going to hang their hat on these jobs numbers, they're in trouble. The Federal Reserve is not hanging its hat on these jobs numbers, and Jerome Powell specifically talked about that last week when he said that's just one data point. The jobs report is just one data point. So I'm a little sick of the White House flaunting this jobs report as the main driver of what they're going to do for a phase 4 stimulus. But I am encouraged to hear Peter Navarro say a $2 trillion package. And there you heard Kevin Hastert saying the $3 trillion Nancy Pelosi package is too much. And so they also said the $1 trillion Mitch McConnell package is not enough. And there you're starting to see what's emerging from the White House is a $2 trillion plan.